This discussion is a counting routine. So once again, you're going to need to know an appropriate range for your child. And this might be similar to the previous range in the Guess My Number. So in kindergarten, students are expected to count to 100 by ones and tens, beginning at 0. They're also expected to count back from 30 by ones. In addition, students need to be able to count to 100 starting at any number within that range. Many students can begin at 1 and continue counting to 100 because once those dominoes start to fall, they just chase those dominoes all the way to 100. But when you ask a student to start at a number other than 1, it makes it a little bit more difficult, and that gives you an idea of what you need to work on. For instance, you can ask a child to start at 12 and keep counting until I say stop. You want to try to allow the child to cross a decade. For example, start at 12 and keep counting until I tell you to stop.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
You can stop right there. So I allowed him to go past 20 to make sure that he understood what number comes after 20 when we cross that decade. This time we're going to try another way. Let's count together. I'll start and you say the next number. 41,
42,
43,
44,
45,
46,
47,
48,
49,
50,
51,
52.
like that. You can also practice counting back. This is difficult for most students, as most students only practice counting back from 10 to 1, and it might be a memorized routine for them. When you ask them to count back from a number other than 10, that might be a little bit more difficult and take more practice. Let's start at 15 and count back until I tell you to stop.
14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8.
You could stop right there. Nice job. This time I'm going to say 3 numbers and you say the next 3 numbers. So, 57, 58, 59.
60, 61, 62.
All right. Crossing a decade is something a lot of students struggle with, especially our youngest students. They might say 27, 28, 29, 80. They'll choose their favorite decade to follow the last number in the previous decade because they simply aren't sure what comes next. This is something that's a great thing to practice at home because it's something that so many students struggle with. Another thing you can do is practice counting by tens. This begins in kindergarten and in first grade and in second grade. Most students are familiar with how to count by tens when starting at 0. For instance, like this. Count by tens beginning at 0.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100.
All right. What most children struggle with is counting by tens when we don't start at 0. This is something that becomes more important in second grade. So sometimes you might have a child count by tens starting at a number that is different than 0. This time let's count by tens starting at 4.
Okay. 14, 24, 34, 44, 54, 64, 74, 84, 94, 104.
All right. So that's another thing that students need to be able to practice because when adding, sometimes we need to add tens in addition to adding ones. When students are comfortable adding tens mentally, it will make it easier for them to do math involving adding tens. Students in first grade are expected to be able to count to and from 120 starting from any number. That means counting forward to 120 and starting at 120 and counting back. Find a range of numbers your student needs to work on and work to practice counting back and counting forward from any number in that range. Try to keep your counting routine at about 10 numbers at a time to reduce frustration. So short routines like the ones that we've demonstrated today. In second grade, students will count to and from 1,000 from any number. Students in second grade also need to be able to skip count by 5s, 10s, and 100. One thing that's important for second grade students to practice is counting by 10s and 100s starting from any number. For instance, let's count by 10s starting at 521.
531, 541, 551, 561.
Okay, you can stop like that. You also want to practice counting by hundreds starting at any number. Let's start at 356 and count by hundreds.
366, 376.
Oh, that's by tens. Instead of counting by tens, this time we're going to try it by hundreds.
Okay.
So 356 is our start number.
Okay. 456, 556, and 656.
All right. So these are some counting routines you can practice at home with your child. See you next time.